We know that Ms. Perry and Mr. Wesson will not be able to attend this meeting, and we're checking on Mr. Reyes. But in any case, we should move forward with the meeting. We have several consent items. I will wait for... Actually, it doesn't matter whether Mr. Reyes comes or not. We still don't have a quorum. So we will send these on to council with my recommendation for consent. The consent items are items 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We also have item 2. We intend to receive and file that item. That will be the order. Okay, and okay, we have 2 items that have to be read into the record. Item number 8. Take that matter up at this time.
Item number 8 is an LAHD report and CAO report relative to approval of the results of the Code Enforcement and Rental Stabilization Ordinance hearing officer request for proposals and authorization to execute a professional services agreement with the selected proposer, Beth Rosen Prince, to provide hearing services for a term of 12 months effective August 1st, 2013 through July 31st, 2014, with 2 one-year renewal options for a total amount not to exceed $180,000.
Okay, we do have one card on this matter. Michael Millman.
Good morning. Michael Millman, MILLMAN, 2100 Sawtelle, Suite
Mike,
10.
could you speak directly into the mic, please?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Michael Millman, 2100 Sawtelle, Suite 105, West LA 925. I'm here to oppose this. We think that with the new mayor having been selected, we should defer this over to him for another 2 or 3 weeks. It's a contract that appears to be for a term of 3 years, and I think it would best served by having the new mayor selected. In reading the material at the counter, apparently this hearing officer, proposed hearing officer, is required to rule on motions, make determinations of issues based upon findings of fact, conclusion of law, and other regulation. There's nothing, Mr. Chairman, in the record to suggest one way or another that she has any knowledge one way or another about California law. I bring today something that every practicing lawyer has, which is the California Rules of Evidence. I suggest to you in these REAP hearings and these appeals, it's very important to understand principles of law, principles of burden of proof, due process, and things of that nature. There are retired judges who work for $100,000 a year that would better serve the community. Finally, this posting was never sent to AGLA or any of the apartment associations whatsoever. She was the only applicant on a score of 100. She got 93. Nothing suggests to me that she's qualified when you're taking people's property away to understand basic principles of law. She hasn't been properly vetted, and she was the only applicant. I thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Do you have any other testimony on this matter? Did you want to say anything?
I just need to make a correction.
Okay.
Councilmember Madeline Rackley with the CAO. I need to make a correction to recommendation number 2, A and B. The account numbers, there's a typo. Instead of 43K299, it should be 43K229 on both of those in A and B. And we're here also to answer any questions you may have about the contract.
Yeah, with regard to the mayor-elect, he certainly has the opportunity to weigh in on the council floor if he has any concerns and I see no reason to hold this, and he has not mentioned anything to me, so if he does have a concern, like I said, he'll have an opportunity to raise that
Sure.
question on the council floor.
And council member, this was an open RFP, RFQ process that followed the city's posting.
Right, and the second comment I was going to make is the hiring authority is the general manager of housing, and he's in a better position, she is in a better position to deduce whether this person is the best qualified candidate that competed. I see no reason to move forward with this, so with that, I'll recommend that this item be moved forward to council with my recommendation for approval. Item number 9.
Oh, pardon me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
For the record, on item number 4,
As amended. Yeah.
there is a CAO report, so we could move the recommendations in the CAO report.
I'm sorry, say that again?
On item number 4, there is a CAO report that was not mentioned in the agenda, so if we could move the recommendations in the CAO report.
Yes. That'll be the order.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, back to number 9. We don't have any cards on this matter. However, we would like to read the matter.
Item number 9 is an LHD and CAO reports relative to approval of the results of the Construction and Technical Services Request for Proposals 2012, authorization to execute contracts with 15 selected contractors for a term of 12 months effective April 1st, 2013 through March 31st, 2014 with the 2 one-year renewal options and related actions.
I understand there are technical amendments. What are those?
I'm so
technical
sorry,
amendments?
Councilmember Madeline Rackley again. I had another typo. Recommendation number 3C, the from account number should be 43G902 rather than 903. You know, you type as fast as you can, and sometimes you muff.
Haste makes waste.
Indeed.
Okay, those amendments are noted and included in the recommendation for approval. So we'll move that on to
Thank you.
City Council. Okay. We have item number 10.
Item number 10 is a CLA report relative to modification of the Foreclosure Registry Ordinance to provide proactive enforcement of the Los Angeles Foreclosure Registry Program.
Good morning, Councilman Clay McCarter with the CLA's office. In 2010, Council adopted the Foreclosure Registry Program, and this program was designed as a complaint-based program to address blight at foreclosed homes. Following the start of this program, it was determined that the city needed a more proactive strategy in addressing foreclosure blight. So a motion was adopted in Council and directed that the CLA look at this issue and come back with a report on recommending a proactive inspection program. And our report recommends amending the Foreclosure Registry Program to include an enforcement fee which would fund proactive inspections of registry properties by city code personnel. The purpose of the proposed program is to prevent the blight that often results at foreclosed homes. A Department of Building and Safety fee study calculated that an inspection fee of $274.33 would be sufficient to fund the proactive inspections of properties on the foreclosure registry. We also recommend that the existing LAHD fee of $201.50 per inspection be assessed to banks to fund proactive inspections of multifamily properties that are occupied on the foreclosure registry. The mayor's budget provides funding for 6 LADBS inspectors to participate in this program. And I just wanted to make one correction in our report. On page 4, the mayor's budget funded $778,000 for this activity, not the 1.55 listed in the report. The following properties are subject to the program. Once an NOD is filed on a property, the bank will be required to register the property with the Los Angeles Housing Department. The parties responsible for complying with the registry are any beneficiary or trustee who holds or has an interest in a deed of trust on a residential property in the city, and also a beneficiary of a deed of trust who has gained title to a property located within the city due to foreclosure sale or deed in lieu of foreclosure sale. So upon filing of the notice of default, the responsible party would be responsible for inspecting the property and then provide an update to LAHD upon any status changes of that property as it progresses through the foreclosure process. We recommend that the NOD vacant properties and the REO, occupied and REO vacant properties, be proactively inspected by city personnel. If the city personnel finds any forms of blight at the property, then they would write an order to comply, and that property would enter the normal enforcement process of building and safety or LAHD. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Okay, so when you say proactively, you're saying that this is not a complaint-driven program. However, complaints will also be a focus.
That is correct, yes. If a complaint
Or given priority.
Yeah.
Is somebody from Building and Safety here?
Yes, we have several.
Yeah. I want to get a sense, because right now we have 7,000 homes on the registry. Is it our intent to inspect all of those? Or how are we going to do this?
I'm John Beesens from Building and Safety, and I think that the plan is not to inspect all of them, only the bank-owned and vacant properties on the list.
And how many are those?
We anticipate, from the CLA has calculated that there should be about 5,000 of these proactive inspections per year.
5,000 per year? With 7 people?
Yeah.
5,000.
6.
That's 800. So that's what, 3 or 4 a day, or how much is per inspector?
Well, it could be as many as we estimate is about 8 per day, 8 to 10.
8 per day, really?
Yeah, and then it includes a lot of, there's oftentimes paperwork and administrative tasks associated with doing the inspections, and as well as some follow-up, and so there may be, and it's a citywide program.
And the fee is charged for each inspection, so if they have to return to a property, they get charged an additional fee?
The fee is one-time fee, one per year. So there'll be one inspection. Now, if there are no violations discovered at that inspection, then that would cover the fee for that inspection. If there are violations, then our normal enforcement protocol would be followed, which has other fees associated with it for violations.
Oh, I see, okay. I guess if you automatically go out and check one of these homes, the problem isn't so much that the homes are necessarily in bad shape at the point of foreclosure. The problem is that over time, they deteriorate rapidly, and how are you going to, at what point are you going to be inspecting these properties, or why aren't we going back to like the first inspection, it could be perfectly clean, and then, 3 months out, it could be a mess.
Well, part of the program includes a process where the property owner or the banks do a monthly inspection themselves on a property, and they'll report the status of their inspections to the registry. And when there's a change in status, that'll trigger us to go out and do the proactive inspection.
So a bank is going to say their property is in disarray? I mean,
Well, when they say their property is either vacant or when their property is owned by them, then they will be required to pay this proactive inspection fee, which then triggers Building and Safety to go do the inspections on single-family dwellings.
Just want to provide a little clarification. John is correct. My name is Steve with Building and Safety. So what's
you're
supposed to
building
happen?
safety now.
Yes, that's correct. This is a 2-3-step process. So the banks register with the housing department for the properties that are foreclosed that actually they own. After that, they have to update their registry to show whether the property is rented out or the property is vacant. If it is determined that the property is rented out or vacant, that is the time that we move in. And what's going to happen in the system when the banks go to update their systems to show that it's either vacant or leased, then before they have to update, the system will require them to actually pay the $274 fee. Once they pay that, then the Department of Building and Safety will go out. What we were not asked as part of this process is to go back and inspect those properties after we inspect them the first time. If that is the desire of City Council, then we might actually need additional funding to be able to do that.
That's exactly my point, that the problem is not the first time you go out. The problem is 3 to 6 months later when they allow the property to deteriorate. And I think there should be an additional inspection fee at that point. In other words, the first time they came out, no problem, that's to pay for the cost of the program. The second time, if you get a complaint, for example, and then you have to go check that property, what, you're not going to charge them for the inspection because you already charged them? No. So how do we ensure that Building and Safety, if we don't give them that extra fee, then Building and Safety would not be necessarily inclined to go out the second time. And then they, could turn around and say, well, we couldn't inspect it because we had the other $5,000 to do.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And the issue comes when there's no violation. So when there is a violation, then we have, there is another fee.
Because they're going to track that.
Right, there's no problem because then we do charge fees for the violations. When there's no violation, that's what the 274 covers. And that
so how can we ensure that if Building and Safety has to come out for a second inspection or any number of inspections after that, that fee will be triggered?
Councilmember, I just want to add that, due to lack of funding, pretty much the entire city, Building and Safety has lost a lot of staff in code enforcement.
That's why I'm trying to get you more money here.
Oh,
I'm asking the CLA, how can we ensure that the language includes an additional fee if Building and Safety has to come out a second time for the same purpose?
We can add that we can recommend that if the committee wishes to have a second inspection.
The committee wishes to do that.
Of months after that, we can come back, when we come back with the ordinance, we can look at that and include that.
Okay, that would be a recommended amendment. Okay, so this fee of $274 and 33 cents, was it
Yes,
33 or 32?
It's $274.
I don't want to
33.
make the same mistake she made. Okay. It does not include potential legal issues,
No, it does not. It just covers the building and safety inspection.
and it doesn't include collection fees. Should we have to send collectors out to get it?
No, it does not.
What's the normal collection process for building and safety?
Well, we have penalties for non-payment of...
No, but what's who actually does the collection?
Oh, that's probably...
we do have our accounting financial services section. First of all, the inspectors will inform them if there is a notice to correct for a property. Once the notice to correct is issued, then simultaneously information is sent over to our financial services.
Okay,
who
so
will
does
bill.
the $274 include collection? Or just inspection?
It does include collection. However, looking at the report here today, I found out that Building and Safety actually will not get all the necessary funding to be able to do this, because as we stated here in our report, our cost is actually $1.3 million, but I just found out that we only funded for $778,000 in 1 year. So I don't know how we're going to be able to do that.
We can address that. I think we'll have to address that because I don't I don't see how that's possible.
Yeah,
The mayor's budget, it funded the program for 1 year, funded 6 inspectors for 1 year, and this fee of $274.33 will fund 5,000, assuming 5,000 inspections, it will cover all the costs of those 6 inspectors.
It's only covering the cost of inspectors, but it doesn't cover the cost of collections, assuming that there is need for primary and secondary collections. It doesn't cover, systems. It doesn't cover clerical work. It doesn't.
Okay, we're looking at this ass backwards. The cost recovery
Yeah,
is in the fee, the $274.
that is correct.
My question is, does that cover the cost of collections as well as the inspection?
It does cover that,
Okay, then if
however,
it covers, then
but we're not funded for that, though.
you're not funded for that because the funds are going to be reimbursed by the fee.
I beg to differ, Councilmember. The reason I do is because there is already money in the Foreclosure Registry.
Right.
Foreclosure Registry collects money for both multi-housing and for
Well,
single residence.
wait. You're talking about 3 separate revenue streams,
Yes.
okay? The budget, the foreclosure registry fund,
Yes.
and the inspection fee.
Yes.
The cost recovery, all we want to focus on is how much the inspection fee, whether or not the inspection fee covers the full cost. If indeed it does, we don't have to worry about the other 2 fronts. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is how do we make sure that fee is the appropriate amount to cover all the costs?
The fee is the appropriate amount. The only problem is that the first year,
No, it's not the appropriate amount, because we've already said that the legal is not included in that. So,
legal,
you gotta work with me, man.
Okay. I'm with you.
I'm trying to help you.
Okay.
But you gotta help me help you.
Okay.
Okay, so, there is a shortage in the allocation in the budget. And the mayor's office may or may not recognize that. But the allocation apparently is intended as a startup cost.
I would say that yes, and then this fee is,
So it was never intended to cover the full cost. And trust me, when that inspection fee comes, they're going to take it back. So I want to make sure that inspection fee covers the full cost of running, not just the inspections, but the full gamut of services that are needed to implement this program correctly. So if Steve says that the fee covers the cost of collections, are there any other costs that might not have been included in that fee that should be included in order for the city, not just building and safety, but the city, to recover its costs?
that would be a question for building and safety. They performed this.
It's not a question for building and safety. It's a question for the city attorney. It's a question for the CAO. Building and safety is covered. Steve, you're telling me that the 274 covers the full thing, right?
274 covers all building and safety costs. The legal, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
And so
Building and safety is covered. What about all the other departments?
Excuse me, I misunderstood. So when we come back with the ordinance,
And if we send the police out because gangbangers are hanging out at the house, do we have that included
that
in
is
this
not
fee?
included in the cost.
How many times have we done that this year?
I'm not aware of that.
What about fire?
Fire is not in the fee as well either.
Okay, honestly, I think the fee is woefully inadequate. When we initiated this program, we failed to do this. I don't want to fail to do it again. That's exactly what we did. We created a program, but we had no resources to implement it. So I don't want to do that again. So we need to get at what is the full cost. Now, the mayor has given us startup funds, so there's no reason to slow this process down. But if you're thinking that this is the full cost of this program, it's not, because there are, 2/3 of these properties are in trusts that are going to cost a fortune just to track down who owns it and who to bill. So I'm not sure your collection costs are accurate. So what I would like to do is move the item forward, but I would direct the CLA to work with the CAO and all pertinent departments, especially legal, the city attorney, the police and fire departments, to determine if they are incurring additional costs that should have been calculated in this cost recovery fee, and report back, well, as soon as possible. I would have liked to have been here, but I can't help you there. So, I mean, we could schedule something in 2 weeks, but I don't know that they'll have much information at that point.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. This item is actually in council this morning.
Yeah, I know, and
Oh.
that's why I say I want to move it forward, but I also want to amend the report to direct the departments to report back to this committee ASAP, like in 2 weeks if possible, with at least an understanding that they could get some cost recovery out of this too, and they should. And building safety shouldn't be bearing the burden. I would also direct building and safety to really sharpen your pencil and calculate what the costs of collections might be, because you probably didn't calculate in the cost of that second inspection, and 1 second inspection is going to create a whole world of additional costs. And, the first inspection, 90% of them are not going to be a problem, maybe even more. But that 1 out of 100 is probably going to cost you 10 to 20 times more than what we budgeted.
So when we come back next, in 2 weeks, Councilmember, you want us to actually add the cost of the second inspection to the...
I don't know how to do this.
Oh, we can do that,
What
but
I think we need to do is, like 6 months later, you need to come back and report to this committee as to whether you're running into those problems,
okay.
so that you can then adjust the fee at that point. Because we're not going to be, I mean, I don't think there's an analyst who could calculate how many banks aren't going to respond and how many trusts aren't going to be responsive.
The problem, Councilmember, is that our code enforcement is complaint-driven. Unless somebody complains, our inspectors will not go out there. Before, we used to proactively go when we had enough staff, but because we don't have adequate staff, we can't proactively go out there and check to see if it was done. So the only way it can be
The
done...
CLA says this is a proactive program.
No. Well, the second inspection cannot be proactive unless we have additional
the
money.
most important part.
Then we need to add it into our calculation and increase the fee.
Councilmember, if I may say, when we started discussing this program in the very beginning, we were talking about the frequency of our inspections, and we came up with many different options, and it's simply just a matter of adding the inspection cost to the second one, like you're suggesting. It would be a good idea. And that would be 2 per year. I mean, we'd have to put some kind of, limit on it. I mean, in the beginning, we talked about every month. That was exorbitant. The costs were astronomical. So maybe 2 per year would be a good solution. Just as
I'm sorry, 2 per year what?
2
2 inspections per year.
Right now, we're,
Across the board?
well, we'd have to budget, it doesn't have to be across the board, but we'd have to budget for some number of additional inspections.
For the vacant properties and the
The mayor has
properties...
already created startup funds. That's separate and apart from the inspection fee. The inspection fee is supposed to be full cost recovery.
That is correct.
So you do have some flexibility. And that's why I say report back in 6 months with your experience. And if it demonstrates that you're going to have to tap into the general fund in order to maintain this program ongoing, then in 6 months come back to the council and say, hey, we're going to run out of money. Or either that or the mayor's going to have to continue to use the general fund to supplement the program. I think you're covered. Okay, you got a good amount of startup funds. And we need more information before we can accurately discern what the actual experience is going to be. I'm just trying to get you on the right track so that you can come back and be prepared to make those requests. So, in fact, let me direct Building and Safety to report back in 6 months as to whether or not they anticipate that the cost recovery is sufficient. And in the meantime, I know we're not going to be sufficient on the legal side, but we have no idea what to anticipate. If we get one entrenched owner that is likely to be a blind trust or something, it's going to cost a fortune for us to figure out where, in staff time, to figure out where the real owner is to try and collect $274. So I think the costs across the board really need to factor in an additional legal expense, and fire and police. In my district, I've been to houses, and the first inspection might be fine, but 6 months later, it's gang infested, vermin infested, drug, needles lying around. That's what I've seen, and it's going to take, and you don't know who the owner is, and so that's where I think we're going to incur a huge amount of money. And so I want to make sure that again, to try and do complete staff work on this, to make sure that we're finishing the job and not finding ourselves short at the end of the year, and doing it right. I think we really need to get more money into this process. And so this is a really good idea. We should have done it the first time. Wish we did it the first time. But now let's get it going. So I recommend, my recommendation will be, and we do have public comment, but my recommendation at this point would be to move this item forward with a recommendation for approval on the fee, and direct Building and Safety to move that program forward. At the same time, I would direct Building and Safety to come back in 6 months with a cost recovery fee analysis to determine whether or not they're in line with the $274.33 fee. In addition, I would ask the CLA to work with the CAO and pertinent departments, all pertinent departments, but especially police, fire, and legal, city attorney, to determine whether or not there's additional cost recovery that we need to incorporate into this program.
Mr. Chair, I failed to mention earlier, we actually recommend that there be one amendment to our report. We recommend that, for recommendation number 2, that we delete the requirement that banks report monthly on their property status to LAHD. And the reason for that is that under the current ordinance, the banks are required to report whenever their property status changes. And banks will still be required to inspect their properties monthly.
Right.
But LAHD felt that having them report to them was not needed because the current ordinance takes care of that.
Okay. By the way, what is going on with that $3 million?
The $3 million surplus, it's about $3.2 million. It's in the program, and we would want to use that money for the proactive side of the program as well.
Okay. We're charging a fee for the foreclosure registry.
That's correct. Yes,
We've generated a surplus of $3 million, and you want to increase the fee.
We want to use the $155 LAHD registry fee is to maintain the registry.
But you wanted to increase that fee.
No.
I thought you wanted to increase it to $200.
No, that's for the LAHD inspections. LAHD was not, under the current program, they were not able to do all of the things that needed to be done to properly maintain the registry.
Even with the $3 million?
It's not the money, it's what the ordinance says, and that's why we're amending the ordinance to proactively inspect. So that's a separate, so we have the inspection fee to go and provide full cost recovery for inspections.
I'm still not getting an answer to what we're doing with the $3 million.
Well, the $3 million can also be used.
It can, but
Right.
we're not doing anything with it.
That money can be, well, the idea is that the budget created a foreclosure registry account. And so a separate action needs to be done to transfer that 3.2 million or whatever such money that is into that new budget account.
Morning, Councilmember. Roberto Aldapi, Housing Department. Currently, the department has a 3.2 million in its foreclosure registry. Pursuant to, actually the CLA report is pursuant to a Garcetti motion in regards to a proactive inspection, which was amended at council. One of the instructions back in June of 2012 was to instruct the CLA to work with LHD to report on ways to use the existing fees collected for the registry to proactively prevent foreclosures. Councilmember may or may not remember, but Councilmember Wesson has a mom and pop's rehab program. We have a transmittal pending before this committee to be heard, using some of that foreclosure registry money to fund that mom and pop rehab program.
How much is in that fund? How much would that program cost?
We're asking 1.2 million for that.
Okay.
So part
That
of
leaves
it,
$2 million.
pardon me?
That leaves $2 million.
Well, that's why Building and Safety is asking for this. The startup money is coming from the foreclosure registry.
Okay,
Not coming
so-
from the general fund.
Oh, it's not coming from the general fund, okay. So the startup amount is 750?
That's correct.
Actually, Mr. Chair, I would just,
Oh, 1.25 million?
Pardon me?
There's still another 1.25 left.
We're looking for enhancements because some of the recommendations that are put forth by the CLA is to require banks to be more proactive in terms of the registry requirements. So we're doing enhancements to our systems as well.
Okay,
In terms of the 20150 fee that's mentioned in the CLA report, the Housing Department, by way of its systematic code enforcement program and its complaint programs, deal with foreclosures on multifamily occupied units. So we charge the 20150 by normal course of our regular fee process. So that's not in addition, and we're not increasing the 155 registration fee that the banks will pay when they're required to register the property at the
okay, you lost me on the 20150.
20150 is a complaint fee. It's what we currently charge if a constituent calls or a resident calls and has a complaint regarding any property in the city of Los Angeles, which would be multifamily
Right.
occupied, then we send our inspectors within 72 hours and we charge a 20150. So we do.
What does that have to do with this report?
It's just mentioned in there that the 20150, there's two inspections, one by Building and Safety for single family and vacant, and the multifamily. The multifamily is covered during a normal course of our operation under code enforcement.
But those are foreclosed properties?
It could be foreclosed, it could be
We're only talking about foreclosed here. So or
including foreclosed.
notice of deficiency, right?
Yes.
Right.
So there could be occupied apartments that have a notice of deficiency that need to be inspected?
That's correct.
Okay, now, you wouldn't inspect them, right?
Not the multifamily units, no.
Okay, okay. Okay, so I don't have a problem with that fee, as long as it's, I'm assuming it's cost recovery.
That's correct.
I'm more concerned with the other program because frankly, we haven't seen that implementation. And we had great intent, but we didn't get anything done. And, well, we got 3 million done, so I don't know how many, that's a surplus. So I don't know how much in fees was the total amount. I don't know how many inspections actually occurred. Or, I'm sorry, that's the foreclosure registry fee.
The 3 million is for the
Yeah.
registration fee
That's-
that bank file.
Thousands and thousands of payments to get to 3 million. I mean, it must be, what,
It's since 2010, that's why. That
yeah. I got to move on with public comment, but I would also, I would also direct AC Housing to report back on that fund, on what's going on with that fund. Okay, so in 2 weeks. Okay, thank you.
One more item, right? Item number 7?
Oh, we
No, I
still
have
have public
card.
comment.
I haven't done anything yet.
Oh, great.
Okay. I've said what I want to do. Now I want to hear from the public. We have Ann Williams.
Good morning. I'm Ann Williams with the Central City Association, representing nearly 450 businesses employing 350,000 people in the Los Angeles region. Among our membership is a substantial number of banking institutions, and as you know well, the cities and financial institutions are working together more frequently in recent years, and the Foreclosure Registry is another example. This is because where there is blight, there is a common goal of addressing it. Recently, CCA and some of our key banking members sat down with representatives from the CLA's office, the Department of Building and Safety, Council District 13, and the Housing Department. The meeting was very productive, and it was clear that the city and the industry can work together to keep our communities healthy. The industry looks forward to continued collaboration and open channels of communication as we move forward. Thank you.
Vanessa Guzman.
Good morning. My name is Vanessa Guzman. I'm an attorney representing tenants throughout Los Angeles County. A large part of my practice is representing tenants who live in dilapidated and uninhabitable living conditions. Over the course of the last 2 years, we've had a substantial increase in clients who live in foreclosed properties, particularly bank-owned properties. And unfortunately, what we've seen is that these buildings are effectively abandoned by the banks. There is absolutely no accountability. For instance, we just retained a group of clients at the end of 2012. They were without any supervision or any person to complain to over the course of almost 2 years. So you could just imagine how much, what can happen over the course of 2 years: leaking ceilings, broken windows, vermin infestations, and then there was no one that they could go to over those last 2 years. So we definitely second the recommendations put forth by the committee.
Thank you. Natalie Meir. After Natalie, we have Stephanie Lane. And after Stephanie, we have Myron Cotton.
Hi, good morning. My name is Natalie Meir, and I am also an attorney who represents many low-income, non-English, Spanish-speaking tenants throughout Los Angeles. And not to be repetitive with Ms. Guzman, but I have also seen many examples over the last 2 years as well of tenants living in these bank-owned properties, not knowing who the landlord is, who to complain to, while they're just living in conditions that just deteriorate over the years. And when we're speaking about low-income, non-English speaking tenants who don't necessarily know their rights, and now you have them not knowing even who to complain to, a more proactive enforcement and sending these inspectors out would greatly help these tenants who are just living in deteriorating conditions. So thank you.
Stephanie? Myron? You can join us at the table. After Myron, we're done.
Hi, Councilmember. My name is Stephanie Lane. I'm from Good Jobs LA. I'm here today with colleagues and allies just to support finally moving on the enforcement amendments, the Foreclosure Registry Ordinance. I just want to make a couple of comments. First, we're happy this is finally moving forward. We definitely support your amendments to add additional inspections and increasing the fees to cover any additional cost recovery and staff. I do want to say that we do not support an amendment that would reduce the responsibility of banks and ask them to not submit monthly reports. I think that's part of the problem here, that banks are not maintaining their properties. And the CLA is just saying that they're amending the report. The banks do not or should not have to submit a monthly report to LAHD. Two other things I want to bring up. One concern city staff has been talking about is the question of when bank responsibility at foreclosed properties begins. We urge you to follow the lead of Oakland and elsewhere, whose city attorneys have made a clear delineation about when vacant properties should be considered abandoned and therefore the responsibility of lenders. There was a piece in the New York Times Magazine this weekend on Chicago foreclosures, where the author wrote that banks are becoming less inclined to take over ownership of properties in order to avoid the maintenance and upkeep we are asking them to do. We need to be serious about holding banks accountable to the messes they have made in our neighborhoods and not run to their rescue or make it easier for them to skirt responsibility. We know the foreclosure crisis is abating in many parts of LA, but in the communities we work in and for many of the communities that folks on this committee represent, we know that this is an urgent issue. One last thing, we also recommend that a program manager be put in place to make sure that this ordinance and this program works. I think that would help with cost recovery and dealing with additional inspections. Thank you.
Good morning.
Hi.
I'm Myron Cotton. I work for the City of Los Angeles, and I'm a property owner here in the City of Los Angeles. I've worked for the City of Los Angeles for 29 years. When we have abandoned properties in our communities, it takes a lot of time and effort for us to make all the complaints. We have to deal with the police. They have to come out, the fire department, building and safety, the housing department, and also street services. Once those houses are secured, a lot of debris and trash and dumping is done outside of those properties where street maintenance is involved. And we also need the costs for that to be added to any additional costs that you'd like to make to this program, because I do feel that we need more money into this program. Whenever there's an abandoned property in our communities, our property values go down. Everyone is in a frantic situation of dealing with gangs and prostitution and crime and drugs and homelessness. It really causes a problem to everyone in that community. And I appreciate you supporting this and moving it forward. I do agree with all the things that you have said today about the additional resources that are needed for just one house on one block. It can destroy the whole community. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all very much. Then we're ready to move this item to council. My recommendation is to support the CLA's recommendations. I do not support the CLA's amendment and would move the report forward without that amendment. And then all the amendments that I indicated, we will recommend for approval. So we will have the CLA lead a team of the city attorney, the police and fire departments, and building and safety, of course, and other departments as needed to come back in 2 weeks to have a discussion about how to move forward with full cost recovery. In addition, we're directing as part of the report that building and safety. Don't you hate it when your phone rings when you're... Okay. Asking building and safety to report back in 6 months as to, on the issue of full cost recovery relative to the funds. At some point, the $3 million is going to be gone, and so you won't have that to lean on anymore. So I want to make sure that building and safety has sufficient fee amount to cover the program on an ongoing basis. Okay. Okay, we done? He hopes so.
We still have item number 7 on the desk.
Oh, yeah, we have item number 7.
Item number 7 is an LHD and CAO reports relative to authorization to execute an amendment to contract number C115683 with Restored Neighborhoods LA to increase the total contract amount by $717,586 and a 1-year extension of the contract for continuation of neighborhood stabilization program activities. Authorization for various budgetary and fiscal adjustments in fiscal years 2012-2013 and 2013-2014, including allocating funds to renew possession authorities for continued implementation of an SP and related actions.
Okay, I don't have any problem with this. We'll move it forward as recommended. With that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.